Hello, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to our lecture series. This is the last one for our spring 2023 semester. My name is Joe Warren. I'm one of the faculty here at the Stony Brook Southampton campus. And it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker this evening, who is a grad student in my lab, Melissa Leone. Melissa is a Long Island native. Coming to us from all the way up island in Massapequa Park, I guess to be specific.
Yep.
She was a Stony Brook undergrad where she was a marine vertebrate biology major, and she is in the process of wrapping up her master's thesis here in the next couple of months. She's going to be talking to us about a whole slew of different research projects she's been doing. Focus mainly on what we can learn from listening to the environment and the sounds that exist in the ocean. But she'll also maybe touch briefly on some of the work she's done when she's eavesdropped on the beaches. Unfortunately, to my knowledge, we have not collected any really good stock tips or celebrity gossip from our research, but maybe Melissa knows some stuff that I don't. If you have questions, please feel free to put them into the chat. And then at the end of Melissa's talk, we'll try and answer as many of those from people here in the audience or online as we can. And then just a reminder, next fall, this lecture series will start up again sometime in September. So stay tuned for announcements, and we'll have basically one talk a month in the fall semester. So with that, without any further ado, Melissa, your mic is on.
It's on, yeah.
All right, listen to that. The acoustic group knows what's going on. So take it away. Or please join me in welcoming Melissa.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Joe. So as you mentioned, my name is Melissa Leone. I'm a master's student in the Warren Lab. And today I'm going to be talking to you guys about eavesdropping on fish and whales and what the tea is with that. So you may be thinking, eavesdropping, what? Are you down there in a little submarine? Why isn't this working? Listening to the whales yourself, listening to the fish and the whales talk and chit chat and gossip. While that sounds really cool, no, unfortunately, I'm not down there with them, but we are listening to them passively with something called passive acoustic monitoring. So passive acoustic monitoring is a non-invasive and cost-effective means of data collection. We are able to keep these recorders down underwater for prolonged periods of time, so giving us very nice long time series of data that we can later analyze and use. So fish in this photo, but any marine organism that swims by that produces noise can be captured by these recorders, depending on if the noises that they make fall within our frequency range that we sample at. So with fish, we typically sample at lower frequency ranges because they typically emit lower frequency noises. And then with toothed whales or dolphins, we typically sample at a much higher frequency range since their noises are a bit higher frequency than fish. And then with that range, we can also pick up noises generated by humans in the form of boats and the occasional scuba diver, as well as weather phenomena. So where are we even collecting this data? We currently have two passive acoustic recorders out, one on the Shinnecock Reef and one on the Fire Island Reef, both of which are 2 nautical miles south of Long Island, and they're denoted by those nice little fish icons on the screen. They're both south of the Fire Island and Shinnecock Inlet as well, which is pretty interesting and has been pretty cool to study. So both of these reefs are made up of sunken vessels, boulders, concretes, retired pieces of the Tappan Zee Bridge, you name it, it's possibly down there. The reefs do differ in size, with the Fire Island Reef about 750 acres in size and the Shinnecock Reef much smaller, about 50 acres in size. They vary a little bit in depth as well, with one reef about 30 meters below the surface and one reef 20 meters below the surface. So Long Island is home to 12 of these artificial reefs with plans to expand in the near future. 8 of them are in the Atlantic Ocean, 2 in the Long Island Sound, and 2 in the Great South Bay. They were created to provide hard bottom structure in areas that are typically flat and sandy, which are common of the structure found of the bottoms found in Long Island. So here we can see structure that began to become colonized with mussel growth, and that has attracted fish in the process. Artificial reefs are commonly referred to as fish aggregating devices due to the fact that they do lure fish to the area, and these fish aggregating devices can be later targeted by fishermen if desired. So the reefs are colonized by small organisms, which in turn attract forage fish and in turn attract large predators in the process. So you can see that accumulation does not just stop on the reefs. Our recorders also get a nice layer of accumulation on them. Here's the same recorder you saw a few slides back with that nice blue and green tape job, completely covered with mussels and some algae growth. Luckily though, with that tape layer that we put on it, we can just rip it right off and there's virtually no mussels left on the recorder, and just have to scrape a little bit of growth on the hydrophone off and we're good to go. So when we deploy our recorders, obviously we can't just walk out there and put them out, though that would be nice. We need certified scuba divers to put them out. I'm not certified, but Joe is, so he's nice enough to put them out down there for me and get really nice photos in the process, like this nice photo of the recorder deployed. And you could even see it's on with the little red light glowing on the top of the hydrophone right here. So the recorders are programmed in the lab before they're put out. They're programmed with a specific sampling schedule and a specific sampling frequency. So we tell them when to turn on and when to turn off. We determine how long they can stay out there with battery life and SD card storage space. And we determine what we want to sample. So we determine what frequencies to sample at if we're more interested in looking at fish or marine mammals. In this case, we're interested in collecting a variety of sounds on the reef. So we sample at a rate of 25 kilohertz, meaning that any sound emitted between 0 and 12.5 kilohertz is recorded on these devices. So now you may be thinking, what do I do with all this data? So sound files are digitally reconstructed in this software called Raven. So what you're looking at is a spectrogram with frequency of the sound signal on the y-axis and time in minutes and seconds on the x-axis. So here we have, and then the color corresponds to amplitude, with the more yellow tones in this case, having a higher amplitude, meaning they have more energy or overall loudness. So I'm going to play for you guys a little sound bite. It's just some human speech that I pulled from a video online to give you an idea of what that looks like on the spectrogram. This always happens.
The rat sat on the mat.
So yeah, just a nice little children's video for you guys to warm everything up. Yeah. So now that we know that fish make noise, which fish in the area are even producing noise? So we have a decent amount of local soniferous or sound producing species. There are 800 species of fish about in the world that make noise. Some local species that make noise are the Atlantic cod, the striped sea robin. This also includes weakfish, Atlantic croaker, black sea bass. We have drums in the area that make noise. And then along with fish, we also have soniferous or sound producing marine mammals. So all marine mammals in our waters produce noise. So on the top, we have the humpback whale, the bottlenose dolphin on the bottom. This also includes minke whales, fin whales, sei whales. The list goes on. Any marine mammal in the area, they're making noise. So time for a little game. Just something fun I added in. I'm going to play 10 sounds that we recorded. They're all recorded on either the Fire Island Reef or the Shinnecock Reef. I'm not going to ask you to decide what species it is because that would be way too hard, but just simply if it's made by a fish or a marine mammal. And there's no tricks in there. There's no surprises, just fish or marine mammal. So our first sound here, I'm going to play it for you guys and you can take a guess on what you think it is. Any guesses? You guys are right. It's a fish. It's a weakfish. And I'm personally doing some research on the weakfish that I will touch on later on in this presentation. But yeah, good job, guys. Way to go. All right, question 2. While it does sound like a bird, we are underwater right now. So no.
Swimming.
Striped sea robin.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. It is a mammal, yes. And that is a whistle from a bottlenose dolphin. Not that, maybe it was the bird. No, it was the dolphin. Okay, third question out of 10. Guesses. It is a mammal. So this is another noise produced by the bottlenose dolphin. So this was a aptly named jaw pop produced by the bottlenose dolphin. So bottlenose dolphins will rapidly clamp down their jaws, creating this popping noise, usually used in aggressive displays. Fourth question. Good guess. Any guesses to which mammal? Close. No. Yeah. So that was a call from a sei whale. So we're to our fifth question. Any guesses? Fish or marine mammal? Fish. You guys are good. You're getting the hang of this. So that is a silver perch. Cute little guy. Yeah. All right, moving on. Kind of sounds like a door creaking. Any guesses? Fish. Oh, I'm sorry. That is a striped cusk eel. We hear them a lot on the reefs. They are very, very noisy, and a lot of them will call at the same time and really raise the noise floor on the reefs. All right, good job, guys. Moving on. Okay, question 7. Oh no, you didn't see that. Well, you don't have to guess because you saw. You're good. It's a fish, and it is the Atlantic cod, the other fish that I am focusing on for research. They produce those grunt noises that you heard, and they're usually associated with when they're spawning, but we'll get into that later on. All right, question 8. So I feel like this is, you guys got it? I feel like this is the classic whale noise, and it's one we know and love, the humpback whale. All right, question 9. There's just 2 more to go. Sorry, no. So this was a call from a fin whale. We do pick them up a lot, usually in the winter. They'll call for hours and hours on end, and they have that very, very unique 20 hertz pulse. It's aptly named because it falls at 20 hertz. What's interesting about this call is that it's so low frequency that it's just on the edge of our human hearing range, which is 20 to 20,000 hertz. So what I have to do when I want to listen to that sound is I have to speed it up by a factor of 10 in order to hear it. So that sound that you just heard was 10 times the original speed of the sound. And what it does when we speed up the sound, it compresses it and raises the frequency and thus the pitch, making it sound louder. We can hear it. All right, last one. No. So those are echolocation clicks. Likely from a bottlenose dolphin. It could be from another marine mammal species. But yeah, good job, guys. Great job. 10 questions down. All right, so now a little bit more into the science, no more fun. I'm just kidding. It's still fun. So how and why do fish make noise? So now that we know they make noise, why do they make noise? Oh, did I skip over the how? No. Okay, why do they make noise? So fish will make noise commonly to attract mates during spawning. So they will elicit a specific species call, a species-specific call that others in the area will hear, and they'll be attracted to the area to spawn with potential mates. They can also use them in aggressive displays. So fish may elicit a specific call, whether it's the same call used during spawning or a different unique call for aggressive displays to alert to show aggression to others in the area. And then they also make calls to maintain spawning aggregations. So what this means is while they're already in the area spawning, they'll continue to call to maintain that group to make sure that everything is carried out successfully. So how do they make noise? So commonly in fish, we see sonic muscles. So the sonic muscles, which are outlined by this, I can't really move my mouse, the black muscle labeled SM in the photo on the right is their sonic muscle. And what will happen is it will rapidly contract against their swim bladder, which you can think of as a type of drum. So it will rapidly contract, and this will create a drumming noise or a sound. And we commonly see this in the family Cyanidae, which are referred to as drums. They also can make noise through stridulation, which is just a fancy word for striking or rubbing of body parts together. So think about teeth grinding. They can produce noise like this, and they can also produce noise indirectly through hydrodynamics. If they swim rapidly in one direction and then change the direction they're going, this can send out a sound signal, usually in the form of little bubbles. So why do marine mammals make noise? Similar to fish, but slightly different. Marine mammals will make noise for communication. So they like to communicate with others within their species group. A lot of marine mammals will travel in pods and will communicate in order to stay together or locate each other if lost. Some species like humpback whales and killer whales will communicate with each other for cooperative feeding events. So that's pretty cool to see in the wild, where animals working together to successfully complete a hunt. And then all toothed whales will communicate or make noise when they output echolocation clicks in order to locate prey. So how do marine mammals make noise? So there's big differences in how toothed whales and baleen whales make noise, or odontocetes and mysticetes. Toothed whales make noise with their phonic lips, which are located in the blowhole. So air will be compressed through the phonic lips and amplified through their melon, that blue structure there, which is a fatty structure, and output into the surface, into the surrounding water. The way they receive noise is sound waves will come through and hit their mandible. It will vibrate their inner ear and send information to their brain. So a little different, the baleen whales. They don't have the phonic lip complex that we just saw. They produce noise with the larynx. So next to the larynx is a laryngeal sac, which can expand and contract. Air is passed between the lungs and the laryngeal sac, and it vibrates this U-fold of tissue that you see here highlighted in yellow. That vibration will output sound waves into the surrounding water, as seen by these nice low frequency pulses in green. And the way they receive noise is ears. So let's dive a little bit deeper into some species. We're going to focus on the weakfish, the Atlantic cod, and the bottlenose dolphin. So the weakfish is a fish that is commonly found in our waters, aptly named the weakfish because they have a weak jaw. When you're fishing them, their jaw will break or snap off. So males produce what are called purrs during spawning, and only the males produce this call, and they produce it during the period in which they spawn and not throughout the rest of the year. So they will make this call in order to attract females into the area. And these calls are made in the summer months, typically between dusk and dawn, and they're usually made near inlets or shallow water sources. We know these calls are associated with spawning because previous trawl surveys have been carried out and have been coupled with passive acoustic surveys, and they have found that eggs were collected at higher rates in areas that weakfish were recorded to call. So quick little plot to show some of the data that we've collected thus far. We can see that on we have the Fire Island Reef on the left and the Shinnecock Reef on the right. The same chunk of data is analyzed. It's the month of July for 2020. We can see that on the Fire Island Reef in general, weakfish appear to be having higher levels of vocal activity compared to the Shinnecock Reef on the right. As we look at the color scale on the right, there are, weakfish only called on these structures between 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. So it matches up with the previous findings in previous studies that weakfish typically call between dawn and dusk. Of course, these findings, I'm also analyzing other data to see when the time frame of their spawning season is on these reefs in New York State. So following up with the weakfish, we have the Atlantic cod, a very well-known fish in the area. Cod make grunts, and they actually make these calls all year round, unlike the weakfish. And both male and female cod make these grunts. And they're used in courting and aggressive displays. So it can be a little tricky when we're listening to these grunts to know if they're associated with spawning events or they're just angry cod down there. So tank experiments have been run previously, and they've noticed that spawning was associated with peaks in grunt activity. So we can assume we like to look at our data and look for peaks, and we can assume that spawning is occurring around those peaks. So I'll show you guys some preliminary data we have so far with the cod grunts on the Fire Island Reef. So we see our peak of 76 grunts in a day occurring on a new moon phase, December 14th. So it was pretty cool to see. It happened perfectly on a new moon phase. And then there are smaller peaks throughout the year. So there are various stocks of cod that spawn at different times. So it's a little unclear if perhaps there's different stocks in our waters, or there's just spawning at different times, or these peaks are maybe not all spawning related and could be aggressive displays. So next up, the bottlenose dolphin, a common marine mammal found in our beaches. If you've ever been down to the beach lately, you've probably seen their little dorsal fins popping up near the shoreline. Bottlenose dolphins make context-specific sounds. They have a decent amount of vocalizations in their vocabulary, all of which can mean different things. So they have specific sounds for when they're communicating with others, specific sounds for aggressive displays, and also sounds they make when they're foraging. So we can use their sounds associated with foraging to understand if and when they're feeding on artificial reefs. And we can also use their whistles, specifically their individual specific whistles, to understand if the same individuals are coming back to these structures over time. So focusing quick on the jaw pops, I played those for you guys earlier. They kind of sound like a gunshot. They're very unique sound. They're broadband impulses, and they're made by the opening and closing of the mouth. And they're used typically during aggressive displays. So these are noises we see fairly commonly on the reefs. And then echolocation clicks. They're used to locate food in the water column. So echoes return to the sender. So as I spoke about before, they'll send out these noise impulses, and they'll return back, and they'll gather information from these clicks. So when the clicks get closer together, as you can see on the screen at the bottom row, at about 18, 19 seconds, the clicks get a little bit closer together, and it's believed that they're homing in on their prey the closer the clicks are getting together. So, and lastly, what I think is the most interesting sound they make is their individual specific whistle. So bottlenose dolphins have these ISWs, which are unique to the sender. Think of it kind of as a fingerprint for humans. Each bottlenose dolphin has a whistle that follows a unique frequency modulation, meaning that the shape will remain the same and will remain with the dolphin for the duration of their life. So we can use these whistles to understand. It's basically a name, I like to think of it. And in my library of whistles, I name these individuals. So they're very near and dear to my heart. And I get really excited when I see them over and over again. But long story short, we can use these unique whistle shapes to see how these dolphins are visiting the reefs over time. So currently I have a library built of these whistles. Here you can see two different repeats, one on the top and one on the bottom, of two unique individuals. The library has over 500 unique whistles that meet our criteria. Of those 500, about 60 have been repeated more than once. So we can assume that these 60 individuals are unique individuals that have made whistles on the reef over time. Those 500 whistles are likely individuals as well. It's just I have not seen them again. So I cannot say with confidence if they are an individual specific whistle or just a regular whistle that dolphins do emit. They also have regular whistles. So it gets a little confusing. Here are just some more examples of whistle repeats. So we have another individual in the top row and a second individual on the bottom row. So you may be thinking, why does this all matter? Great question. So this study in general and the use of passive acoustics helps to further our understanding of the ecology of New York State waters. Ecology as a whole is very important in the broad scheme of things. We understand how the animals in our waters are interacting with said environment. And this, of course, is beneficial to us if we understand their patterns, because we rely on these species as a source of food, a source of income, and also we want to protect them in any way, shape, and form going forward if that dictates enhanced management plans. And then we can also use these sounds to understand how these reefs are being used by fish and marine mammals. So that circles back to certain sounds are made in certain contexts, and we can monitor those trends over time to understand how these structures are being used. So we can delineate spawning habitat. So when we collect spawning associated calls, we can determine that there is a spawning area or perhaps a little hotspot for that specific year and time that these species were using to spawn. This, of course, is crucial for threatened and protected species. The weakfish and Atlantic cod in particular are of interest because of their recreational and commercial importance in New York State. And throughout the past decades, they have had a very fluctuating strength in their stocks. So any further information on where and when these species are spawning can help management plans going forward. We can also understand where predators are foraging. This is a little more applicable only to marine mammals. We can track their echolocation clicks and understand if these artificial reefs are also hotspots for predators to eat. So we know that fishermen like to go out and target these reefs, but do other predators also like to go out? And are they finding that these reefs are serving as a fish aggregating device as they were intended? And we can also understand rates of residency overall. So here we have even more unique whistles from different senders. ISWs can be used to establish, can be used to understand if there is a resident population of bottlenose dolphins in New York State. Similar studies have been done in Florida to understand how individual dolphins return to an area over time. And then repeats may suggest that these artificial reefs are serving as habitat for individual dolphins. And why should we care about soniferous species? So we know these animals make noise, but who cares? In the grand scheme of things, gathering any additional information on the ecology of species in our waters is crucial for furthering management plans and strengthening management plans that are already in place. We can collect this data in a non-invasive way and a cost-effective way. We don't negatively impact these species that may be threatened, like the Atlantic cod or the weakfish. We just put recorders down there, let them capture the data, and then we analyze it at a later date. We can also understand spawning area of said threatened species, and this can be used to strengthen any management plans in place. And then context-specific vocalizations can help us understand how these habitats that New York State keeps implementing are used overall. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Melissa. So I think we had a little hiccup technology-wise with people on the Zoom, and the sounds weren't coming through. So what we're going to do is let's see if there are any questions from the audience here. You can start addressing those, and then maybe we'll go back and play some of those sounds for the people online. So,
Any questions? Yes,
What's the most unusual fish that you've heard in our area?
in our area.
I saw the bird fish. Have you heard like the northern puffer or anything like that?
So there are, I have a folder on my computer of so many like unidentified sounds. I've heard things that sound similar to puffer, but I can't say with certainty because they're very like soft noise. They're not very like stereotyped and unique like the weakfish or the cod. I'd say the most unusual one is the silver perch. It sounds very alien-like. And it kind of like sounds like it's echoing. So it's a little spooky. Yeah. Any other questions?
take another question.
Thanks.
What about those boats that you're recording?
Great question. Yeah. So along with the fish and the marine mammals, I also pick up, as you can imagine, a lot of human presence in the form of boats. So I'll pick up sound from commercial vessels, which is super, super low frequency and can travel very, very far distances. And I'll also pick up sound from recreational boaters, a bit higher frequency. So depending on the time of year, we can see boating noise at basically the entirety of the day, not necessarily every single file, but every hour of the day for a week, say. Overall, boat presence and boat noise seems to be more abundant on the weekends, which makes sense. I'm currently interested in looking at how sounds from commercial vessels and recreational vessels change the sound levels overall on the reefs.
Okay, it looks like some of the sounds went through, but not all of them. So we do have a question, which maybe this picture will help you answer. Why don't we have video that goes with the audio?
We don't have cameras down there.
Why wouldn't we? What are the problems with cameras?
So I would love to put cameras down there, but the water clarity is not great on the reefs. The photo you're seeing on the right is one of the better photos we've seen. The clarity does not always look that good. And even if it does look that good, you can only see probably tens of feet in front of the camera in one small area. You need cameras everywhere down there.
And we don't have any cameras that we can put down for a year the way we can with passive recorders. So here, why don't we try, let's see. Can you take off the mic?
Yeah.
We'll try sticking it near the speaker, maybe. We'll see if people in the audience can track this any better. There's anybody in the chat who could confirm or not confirm whether you could hear those clicks? Or no. Why not? No, we can hear them well here. What is going on? No, somebody heard two. All right, well, we will try and put those in possibly on the video when it gets posted. Apparently it worked during testing, but not when we actually set up the, well, but it might have been, we logged into a different Zoom for the meeting. So any other questions, either online or from people in the audience?
Like there being a difference between the individual or specific noises for dolphins and normal ones, how do you differentiate?
Like the,
Do you want to repeat the question? Because I didn't hear it.
So the question was that you mentioned there was a difference between individual specific whistles and then non-individual specific whistles. So bottlenose dolphins, there's been previous studies that have determined that if a whistle occurs within 1 second of the next whistle and it's the same frequency modulation pattern, it's not an ISW, not an individual specific whistle. But if there is a gap larger than a second between those whistles and they follow the same frequency modulation pattern, then it is an ISW. So previous studies have followed dolphins around and listened to the whistles they made from individual dolphins so they know what whistle is associated with which dolphin. And they can track that over time, see the same individuals come back.
I have one more question.
Sure.
Melissa, in your last slide, you're on the beach. And there are no fish, most likely there's no fish or whales at the beach.
No.
So what are you doing? Just going out to the beach for fun?
So along with the recorders that we have underwater, we also have 3 recorders on the beach. So the recorders that we have on the beach are called swifts. And we originally were trying to determine if we can pick up the sounds of piping plover chicks hatching with passive acoustics. So the recorders were placed in a very close vicinity of piping plover nests. We moved on and we were now looking at how aircraft noise. So as you all likely know, there are a lot of low flying aircraft in the Hamptons. So we're looking at how aircraft noise affects the call rate and call type of piping plovers.
And terns?
Which piping
Just
plovers?
plovers?
Yeah.
There's one more question here in the chat. Do fish and marine mammals sing? Do they scream? I don't know the answer.
Humpback whales do have song. So I believe that all humpback whales, given a mating season, will sing the same song across the ocean, give or take.
There are different dialects depending on the region, but yeah, they sing for reproductive purposes. I don't know about scream.
I don't know about scream either. I would,
There are noises that sound like
yeah,
screams.
like a minke whale.
Yeah.
I would equate the jaw pop to a scream. It's very loud and it's a broadband impulsive sound.
Any other questions? All right, well, I'd like to thank everybody for attending the talk. And apologies to the people online about the sound technical difficulties. Maybe we'll play some more sounds here and see if they come through. But we'll see you in September, and let's give Melissa thank you.